Big time bantamweight action set to kick off the main card. UFC 294, we have Said Nurmagomedov taking on Tajik out of Tajikistan. It is Muin Gafurov. Matt, people are going to get excited about this fight. Bantamweight, it is one of the most dynamic divisions in the UFC, and it's always fun when we do these videos. We had a fight like this not that long ago. I referenced it a couple of times, but Drew Dober, when he took on Ricky Glenda, where it was like, what? Like, Tapology rankings, they don't always tell the story. And for Said Nurmagomedov, before his last time out against Jonathan Martinez, he was fighting outside of the rankings. Nurmagomedov had a number next to his name, and he took a somewhat controversial decision loss. I know it was unanimous on all three judges' scorecards, but a lot of people had thought that Nurmagomedov had done enough in the first and the second round. But regardless, for Nurmagomedov on Tapology rank, they're 14th bantamweight out of all of the promotions and everything put together.
You're telling me he lost the third round, Craig?
He's taking on the 71st ranked bantamweight on their slide. That is Muin Gafurov. And Gafurov's one of those guys, you knew him outside of the UFC, so let's hear a little bit about Gafurov on his way. But all things considered, Muin Gafurov is a known commodity for MMA fans. And if you don't know, well, you're going to enjoy it, hopefully, because for Gafurov, he makes his one championship debut at 19 years old against Rhys McLaren. Loses that fight because he gets out-grappled.
Well, wait, Craig, is Rhys McLaren good?
So Rhys McLaren wins by decision and gets a title shot off of that.
He's very good.
Then Gafurov takes on Kevin Bellingham, who was coming off a title shot, and he loses that fight because does he get out-grappled? No, he gets outstruck. Yeah. But the guy's 20 years old. Then he wins a plethora of fights. He ends up with one once more, and he loses to John Lineker, who was coming off a close loss to Corey Sandhagen in Lineker's one championship debut. So Muin Gafurov took on a who's who over with one championship. He's taken on a who's who since. He ended up on Contender Series a couple of years ago. Takes on the Canadian Chad Anheliger. Loses a split decision in a fight that was... It was back and forth. You could have made an argument that Gafurov won two rounds. You could make an argument that Anheliger won 2 rounds. But overall, Gafurov, a minus 450 favorite, he didn't win that fight. So he's got to go back and reinvent himself. He takes some time off, ends up with the LFA. 2 straight finish wins. He becomes their vacant bantamweight champ. And if you look at it in terms of the lineage of LFA bantamweight champs, it starts with Leandro Higo, then Ricky Simone, Casey Kenny. The lineage, it's there. Zviad Lashishvili, who ended up in the UFC, but he was a juicy boy. So he couldn't be around for much longer. But Muin Gafurov is such an interesting prospect because what got him into MMA was the fact that his uncle was the president of the Combat Sambo Federation of Tajikistan. And he said, don't get into football. Get into Combat Sambo. And he did, and he became a world champion, not at once, but at twice. 2013, 2014. I'll throw the graphic up there because in 2013, he wins at 62 kgs. Among the winners in that tournament, Yaroslav Amosov won his division. In the second time out, Pavel Kusha, who I'm going to talk about because he fought Abubakar Nurmagomedov, won an apartment and $3,000 cash. Matt, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen anybody win ever.
No, shout out our grandfather one time at darts. He won 4 steaks and like some hash browns because that's what they give away at a rec center.
Yeah, but that's a rec center darts tournament, not a world championship in Sambo. Here, Pavel, here's the keys to an apartment. How long do you think the lease was?
You don't want 4 ribeyes?
Month to month, and we paid for 1 a month. So decisions, they're not Gafurov's friend. All 5 of his losses by decision. His last time out on short notice takes on John Castaneda. First round against the Sexy Mexi, eats a head kick and a hook and gets dropped. And Gafurov, he's one of those guys, and I know we touched on it kind of coming into the UFC. We know him for that Sambo lineage, but he's also doesn't have great takedown defense, and
he's got that all gas, no brakes to him.
He's a guy that really tries to threaten with a lot of knee bars and a lot of Kimuras to get himself back up to the feet. And you've seen a lot of fighters do that recently. Obviously, you saw Irina Alekseeva struggle for those against Melissa Dixon last weekend, but Gafurov is cut from that same cloth to where he burns really hot, he's got a good gas tank, his striking defense will throw out the window. And when you look at Gafurov taking on Said Nurmagomedov, I can go through these fights that Nurmagomedov's winning, whether it was the debut against Justin Scoggins that was close, or his fight against his last 2 wins, rather, Douglas Silva, De Andrade, Shayed, Yakub Kakrakhmanov. He's had to come back in some of these fights, like the D Silva fight where he got caught clean, and the fight against Said Yakub, he got out-grappled to where, yeah, he got that submission win, and it was really cool to see. He resets off his butt like he's Alex Morono against Tim Means. We'll just, scoot that guillotine in there. But Said Nurmagomedov, he's had to fight from behind in a couple of these, and he could get to that spot against Muin Gafurov.
And that's the thing with Said Nurmagomedov. Feels like for every positive that you're going to mention, there's always like an oh, by the way, right behind it too. Like, he's a really good offensive wrestler. He's not like, when you think about Nurmagomedov, so you probably assume Khabib, right? He's not at that level because there are guys who can get out from under him. Like, he doesn't have the greatest of top pressures. And the reason I kind of made the joke earlier of, oh, you're telling me Nurmagomedov lost the third round? He is fairly consistent for the opening 10 minutes, and that's what I have a really hard time with because he'll look pretty good, not fall off a lot near the end of the second round, and then all of a sudden it's almost like a psychological thing with him. It's, hey, it's the third round, he's going to really slow down and change the fighting style sometimes too, and that's what I have a hard time with because if Muin Gafurov does what he has a tendency to do in some fights, which is not only leave big openings with the striking, but even with the grappling, because that's what I think is going to be a big X factor in this one. Nurmagomedov, the best one he has on his resume is the Cody Stamann guillotine, right? Gets that in half a second,
or the quick Mark Striegel finish too.
Cody Stamann was top 15.
The finishes you like, or Ricardo Ramos was able to finish him.
But again, Cody Stamann was top 10, top 15 for a very long time, and he was able to snatch up that really quick. If Gafurov does find himself just kind of being lazy with some of his forward pressure, shooting dumb strikes from the outside and then going for those high velocity takedowns, Nurmagomedov might not be the most fan-friendly guy. There's not a lot of people who are going to say, hey, babe, I'm sorry I can't go out tonight. Said Nurmagomedov's fighting.
Hold on. To kick off a main card of a pay-per-view?
But my point is for Nurmagomedov, he is really good at making his opponents pay for those small mistakes that they make, especially the transitions with their grappling, and this is one of those fights where I could see him having that advantage again.
Yeah, I mean, overall Nurmagomedov in the UFC since 2018 when he debuted, 6-2. Again, that fight against Jonathan Martinez, the to-be ranked fighter. He will be ranked this week. You saw that crazy win over Adrian Yanez his last time out last weekend. But again, the judges, they scored that fight for Martinez, round 2, round 3. If you do look at it, I mean, big wins by finishing. You mentioned the Cody Stamann fight, the Mark Striegel fight, the Ricardo Ramos fight. He has gotten big ones, but there have been spots where Nurmagomedov's not as quick as he was at the start.
Exactly.
He's not able to strike on the half beat like he normally does. He's having a hard time trying to gauge the fight like he did against Douglas Silva de Andrade. So there are some spots in Nurmagomedov fights that give you pause, and typically he is a big favorite, as he is here. More than a 2-1 favorite. So not as big as some of the fighters on this card, but Nurmagomedov is favored to win it. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Matt, surprised to us as they are to you. I'm going to say over under 67.5% Nurmagomedov.
I think they'll be over, but I worry about the fact that he can get held in the clinch sometimes. Like, the Martinez fight, that's what happened. I think that's what lost in the fight, if anything.
1,296 total votes, 96% Nurmagomedov, 63% by decision for the 4% that have Gafurov, 61% by decision. I left my Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb. I almost put crumb and bread in the wrong order, but breadcrumb trail there not that long ago, and I said Said Nurmagomedov, he's able to strike on those half beats, and that really is the key to his wins. And for Muin Gafurov, he leaves big openings in all of his big actions to get countered, whether it's the knees, the straight shots, the teeps up the middle for Nurmagomedov, front kicks as well. And a lot of his boxing is set up when you make a mistake and he's able to counter. So for me, I've said Nurmagomedov, but that last fight that he had against Jonathan Martinez where he was favored to win, it might leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
And even if you don't think Martinez won, it does show how you formulate a game plan to beat a guy like Nurmagomedov. You can take advantage of some of his negativity. Like, him being held in the clinch was kind of surprising, honestly. Like, he's a pretty good grappler. He's got great defensive submissions and good offensive takedowns. You would think Jonathan Martinez, of all people, would be able to hold you in some of those spots. So maybe Gafurov is able to use some of that forward pressure, use the clinch control, and have success in that area. But I agree with you. I've got Nurmagomedov.
Muin Gafurov getting that second shot here. And of course, you remember him as a 4-1 favorite against Shara and Helliger and getting dropped early in that matchup. Both of us in this one going with Said Nurmagomedov to get the win. Let us know who you have in the matchup. The main card rolls on. The next fight on this one is an absolute all-timer, Matt. We're talking about what one?
We're talking about Aliskerov versus Morley Alves. You heard it here first.
Middleweights
it's an all-timer.
Are going at it. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.